This is Ao Man Long. He served as the first secretary for public works in the government of Macau. The official salary of him and his wife was just about $200,000 per year. However, Ao Man lived a life of luxury far beyond that. He possessed multiple luxury cars, expensive watches, with one alone being worth over $150,000, and more exotic products like shark fins. He amassed a fortune of well over $100 million as a public servant, with his money spread in over 100 bank accounts across the world. In 2008, he was sentenced to 27 years in prison for money laundering and slapped with a $100 million fine, basically all his assets. This was the highest profile case surrounding money laundering in Macau, but most covering the case were skeptical that one man alone could take corruption to such a scale without anyone else involved. He was mainly their fall guy, but this is only the tip of the iceberg regarding money laundering in Macau. When thinking about the money laundering capital of the world, London comes to mind, which is true, depending on how you interpret it, especially as London is significantly more international. However, when looking at the volume of laundered money, a study from Credas found that an estimated $104 billion is laundered every year all of the United Kingdom. This number is dwarfed by the city of Macau alone. The Congressional-Executive Commission on China reports that about $202 billion of illegal sourced funds are moved through Macau each year, while all of the US equates its criminal activity to about $256 billion. France comes after the UK with about $64 billion each year, and Germany $60 billion. Keep in mind that this is comparing entire countries to just a single city within China. How did Macau become such a money laundering hub, and most of all, why is nobody stopping it? Curious Michael. To get to know Macau better, we need to learn about its history. The first recorded inhabitants of Macau were those seeking refuge from the invading Mongols during the year 1200. Until the Portuguese arrived in the early 16th century, Macau remained a small fishing village with a population of just about 400. By 1557, a permanent Portuguese settlement was established. While the Portuguese paid annual rent in silver to the Chinese for the privilege of trading there, the locals first gave Macau the name Ya Ma Gang. When Portuguese explorers first arrived in the area and asked for the place name, the locals thought they were asking about the temple and told them it was Ma Kok. This became Macau over the years. The Portuguese continued using Macau as a trading hub, but from the mid-17th century, the balance of power of global trade began to shift away from Portugal as Britain was becoming increasingly powerful in the region. Hong Kong put Macau more and more in their shadow as they were a British colony. The Portuguese put their focus increasingly more to the gold mines in South America instead of the trade from Macau. In order to find an alternative source of revenue, Macau legalized gambling in 1844. Gambling is illegal in the mainland of China and has been since 1935. This meant that going to Macau to gamble became a popular activity among the rich. In 1999, Macau was returned to Chinese rule as a special administrative region under the one country, two systems principle along with Hong Kong. However, gambling remained legal. The city still has a Portuguese touch. Today, 80% of Macau's roughly 82,000 GDP per capita is contributed through the casino industry, by far the nation's most prominent sources of funds. In 2006, Macau surpassed Las Vegas as the most successful gambling hub across the world and brings in 6 times more gambling revenue than Las Vegas. What does gambling have to do with money laundering in the world? Well, a whole lot as it turns out in China. China only allows 20,000 yuan to be moved out of the mainland at a time, and about $50,000 a year. For a rich person, it would take their entire life to just move a small part of their fortune out. To circumvent that, Chinese high rollers can do one of two things. They can deposit money with so-called junkets in the mainland and use that money in Macau, or they can borrow from junket agents. Now, what are junkets? Junkets are basically gaming promoters, which ferry money across borders. These junket agents vary from sole actors to publicly listed companies. They help arrange for visas and accommodations, including VIP rooms. They also collect gambling debts. If the rich person chooses to deposit the money, the junkets then ferry that money across borders to Macau. That rich person then uses that money in Macau. Once they're done gambling, they can take their winnings in US funds or Hong Kong dollars and invest it in property or offshore tax havens. They can basically do whatever they want with it and are not limited to that measly $50,000 limit a year anymore. I said previously that junkets also collect gambling debts. However, Chinese courts do not recognize or enforce payments on casino debts since gambling itself is illegal in China. This means that junkets themselves often rely on the triads to collect their debt. An academic paper has found that Hong Kong's triads themselves basically dominate Macau junkets. According to a member of the notorious 14K triads interviewed for the study, most high roller contractors are triads or businessmen with a triad background. The triads are a Chinese transnational organized crime syndicate based in Greater China, and they have outposts in various countries with significant overseas Chinese populations like San Francisco or New York. They make sure that the debt to those casinos is paid, even when the indebted person is back in the mainland. But not only the super rich are using Macau to gamble. Over 35 million tourists visited Macau in 2018 before the virus, and most people used their visit to gamble there instead of money laundering purposes. Macau's tax income today is almost 90% contributed by the casino industry. Why is it still going on? China obviously wants their rich to keep their money in China. That's why the $50,000 a year regulation is there in the first place. Well, China is cracking down. China started its official anti-corruption campaign in 2012 when Xi Jinping came to power. Alvin Chow, the chairman of Macau's biggest junket operator Sun City, was arrested by authorities. He is facing a string of charges, including fraud, money laundering, and illegal gambling, that could see him spend decades in prison if convicted. Alvin Chow started Sun City in 2007 and brought wealthy Chinese gamblers to casinos in Macau. His business evolved into an investment company that ran hotels and resorts, travel and property businesses, even with a segment in the Philippines overseeing casinos. Alvin Chow was dubbed the Junket King and was once seen as a pillar of the city and sponsored a myriad of major events including an international film festival and the annual Macau Grand Prix. This all came crashing down when in 2019, Chinese state media first accused Sun City Group of helping Chinese gamblers bet illegally via online platforms based in the Philippines and Cambodia. Those illegal online platforms ran from those countries are an entire video of its own, but Chow alone is now facing 286 criminal counts. The amount which the Chinese government saw leave its country is in the dozens of billions, with Chinese businessmen buying up properties in Toronto, London, and other metropolitan cities. Alvin Chow is not the only one who is facing the wrath of the Chinese government. Macau's second biggest junket boss, Tak Chun Group's Levo Chan, is also facing charges of illegal gambling and money laundering. All of this crackdown has led to the dwindling of those VIP rooms across the city's 41 casinos. The COVID pandemic has had a devastating impact on the world, and the tiny city-state of Macau has not been immune. While the Chinese enclave of Macau is usually known for its world-famous casinos, the pandemic has had a drastic effect on the city, with a total shutdown of the gambling industry and a significant economic downturn. The economic impact of the pandemic has been severe, but Macau is resilient and determined to bounce back. As the city slowly recovers, the people of Macau are hopeful for the future. With the right measures in place, the city can emerge from this crisis stronger than before. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to see our future videos and check out these suggestions shown on your screen. I'm sure you will enjoy them.